All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we got an official announcement from the WBC responding to Terence Crawford and a request that he made of them relative to Errol Spence Jr. Let's cover that in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Before I get into the meat of the video though, please make sure to listen to the video all the way to the end. Also, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really does help grow the channel. And also for people to watch the video, today is Christmas Eve. Happy holidays to you. Happy holidays to your family. All right, man, we got an official announcement based on for a request that was made by Terence Crawford to the WBC. If you recall, maybe about a month back, the WBC, Terence Crawford had a spokesman that was at the WBC convention, and he asked and said, Terence Crawford would like to petition to become the WBC mandatory for Errol Spence Jr., and so that they would mandate a fight between he and Errol Spence Jr., right? The news had gotten around and all of that good stuff. However, the WBO, who is the sanctioning body that Terence Crawford is a champion for, gave their opinion on it and said, look, we don't believe, and I do believe that's Paco Veracel. He said that he did not believe that the WBC or anybody else could order one champion to fight another champion. That he had talked to their legal representatives, and they said that that's not the case. You couldn't do that. So my thought was, I did a video at the time that, yeah, that pretty much settles the issue as far as the WBO goes, because the WBO is the championship sanctioning body that Terence Crawford is a champion of. But just yesterday, MAURICIO SULIANON was asked in a press conference about the circumstance, and specifically what he was asked was, hey, MAURICIO, Terence Crawford had a representative at the WBC convention, and they asked you whether or not he could become a petition to become the mandatory for Errol Spence Jr. And you at the time, this is MAURICIO SULIANON, MAURICIO, at the time said that that request has to come from a promoter. And since, at the time, Terence Crawford was with Bob Arum, and Bob Arum was his promoter, that made sense for then. But now that Terence Crawford is a free agent and he is not promoted by Bob Arum, does that request have to be made? Can he make that request directly, and is it still being considered? MAURICIO SULIANON's answer was pretty much blunt, straight to the point, no. He said, first of all, and he didn't address whether Terence Crawford, promoter, and Bob Arum and all that stuff came into play, did not address that. What he said was that it was his understanding, he pretty much echoed what the WBO had said, which was that one sanctioning body, a president of one sanctioning body cannot order the champion of another sanctioning body to fight. So he doesn't have the ability to tell Terence Crawford to mandate a fight, including Terence Crawford. But then he went a step further and he pointed out that they had done something like that before, where the WBO and the WBC had agreed for a fight with one another, to have their champions fight at 175 pounds. And that specifically was Adonis Stevenson, the WBC champion, and Sergey Kovalev, I believe he's the WBO champion. I don't believe he's the IBF champion. I believe he's the WBO champion. They had ordered those two fighters to fight one another. But what happened was that Sergey Kovalev used that order to negotiate himself into a TV deal, and because he went to a different network, they wound up putting Adonis Stevenson on ice for like 8 months. So the whole thing really did leave a bad taste in his mouth. So again, Mauricio Suleiman pretty much just doubles down on what the WBO says and says, no, we're not going to do that. And I do still hear enough people coming through my comment sections, either on the live streams or on videos, that ask about that particular circumstance and say, hey, man, can he become the WBC mandatory and force that Terence Crawford, force Errol Spence Jr. into a fight? And so the question is no. And also that would apply for whether or not he went to the IBF either, or he went to the WBA. As long as he's the WBO champion, none of the other sanctioning bodies can order him to fight somebody. And the key thing to understand is that although Terence is asking the WBC to make the order includes Terence Crawford. So the WBC can order Errol Spence Jr. to fight somebody. But the problem is that the WBC cannot order Terence Crawford to fight anybody. And the order that would be issued for the fight they would be ordering a fight between two parties. They would be ordering two people to enter into a negotiation, both Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, or in the case of Terence Crawford and Yordenis Ugas, right? Or however you cut it, that just can't happen. So the whole route that Terence Crawford wants to make, as far as, trying to become a mandatory, he also says something to the IBF about, hey man, can I be the mandatory for the IBF? That answers that question as well. Now, there are some things that that I did notice one time, like specifically Jorge Linares. I think Jorge Linares at a point in time was the WBA champion, and he was also in the rankings of the WBC. So since he was in the rankings of the WBC and a champion, I think that they ordered the fight between him or they were considering it between him and Mikey Garcia or somebody like that. But so it's just real wishy-washy. The best thing and the most likely thing that I think is going to happen is that Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford, after the Yordenis Ugas fight, just need to sit down and negotiate the fight, period. And that's one thing that I have not actually heard Terence Crawford say that he's done. I know that he did respond when there was a rumor out that somebody sent out a fake tweet saying that Terence, Errol Spence Jr. had called Terence, and Terence was like, nah, nobody called me. We didn't talk. So, that probably means that, Errol Spence didn't call Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford didn't call Errol Spence. Also, there is the thing about who Terence Crawford is going to be managed by, or who he's going to be promoted by. So he probably needs to still work that out, because he is going to need a managerial team or a promotional team to negotiate the deal. But now that we have the fight set between Errol Spence Jr. and Yordenis Ugas, it's all a wash anyway, because that fight is not going to take place until at least the second part of 2023. But again, man, nice try, Terence Crawford. I do believe that he was honest in his attempt to to do that. I don't really get how that would have been the WBC mandatory situation, however, that probably would have worked to his advantage, because their mandatories, if you go to purse split, their purse split for a mandatory versus a champion is 55-45, right? So that's a lot closer to the money that Terence Crawford wants to get as far as a percentage split with Errol Spence Jr. So, hey, man, nice try on that. That 75-25 over in the IBF didn't make any sense, though. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.